I have the distinct privilege of welcoming Rabbi Yaakov Menken, and we are so happy to have you here. He is the managing director for the Coalition for Jewish Values. So welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, tell us about the Coalition for Jewish Values and why is this coalition so important?
So the Coalition for Jewish Values came into existence to solve a problem in public policy. For decades, if not centuries, progressive Jews have been portraying their own personal views as if they were classical Jewish values or as if they represented Judaism and the Jewish people, especially in the wake of the Holocaust with the regrowth of traditional Judaism here in America. It's absolutely untrue. And today, the overwhelming majority of rabbis, by anyone's count, by any tally, the overwhelming majority of rabbis in America are educated in the traditional way and cleave to our traditional values. And so it was time that an organization be formed. And in just 5.5 years, we've spread across the country. We now have over 2,000 rabbis affiliated with our organization, and we really do represent the consensus. But we're also expanding overseas. We are in the United Kingdom, now in Australia, and are starting a healthcare council because the issues which, unfortunately, Ms. Martinez spoke about just a few minutes ago impact the ability of medical practitioners to practice medicine in accordance with their faith and belief.
Now, the Promise to America's Parents includes several points on choices. And one of the key principles is that every mother, every father should have the freedom to choose a school that honors their values. Now, why is this important to the parents that you represent through the coalition?
Almost the entire traditional Jewish community educates their kids in parochial schools that they choose. That comes directly from the Bible. Twice a day, we are commanded to recite a prayer called Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, Deuteronomy chapter 6. And right in there it says, Vishinantam levanecha, you shall teach it to your children. It's very clear in the verse itself that that is a parental obligation first and foremost. Nobody else gets to stand in and say, I know more than you do what your kid should be learning. You have to get parental approval. And to this day, the advantage of parochial education is that parents get to choose the schools to which they send their kids and the type of education they're going to receive, because the teacher is the agent of the parent and serves at the parent's discretion. And that's how it should be. And that's critically important to us and to every rational parent.
So how is what's going on in the school system with everything we've been talking about, how is that impacting your community as far as your ability to teach according to your values?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting, because as much as we're talking about the indoctrination that's going on in the public schools, which is certainly not going on in private parochial education, the government is now trying to interfere in private parochial education. Look at New York State, where the public education is kind of in a shambles. It was in a shambles before COVID, especially in New York City. And after COVID is just, it may never recover, or it's going to take years. And they've decided right now, on the instigation of certain malcontents who left our community, and who want to turn around and damage parental choices, they actually want to interfere in private education and tell those private schools what they should or should not be teaching. When by any measure, something Washington, Jefferson, and Martin Luther King all shared in common, they all said that true education builds character. It's not just reading, writing, and arithmetic, although it should start with those things, but it should educate a child to become a productive adult. And if you look at the yeshiva system versus New York's public schools, the New York officials should really be coming to the yeshivas to say, how can we do it better? Instead, they're trying to come into the yeshivas as if it's the yeshivas which need improving. So the long arm of government, it's not just telling parents in public schools that, oh, we know better than you do. They're actually saying to parents in private and parochial schools that we, the government officials, know what's better for your child.
That would have pretty devastating impacts on your community, would it not? For the government to be able to come in and think they have the ability to educate better than you.
Well, we're Jews. We have 3,000 years of experience with governments telling us we're doing it wrong.
So why is it important? Were you going to make another comment?
Well, if it comes down to it, I mean, the biggest and foremost rabbinical seminary in all of Europe, when Tsarist Russia tried to interfere with the education program, they picked up and moved. It is something for which parents will move rather than, and in fact, in response to some of the efforts of New York State to reach in, certain administrators and parents wrote back to the state saying, you're going to make this state uncomfortable for Jews to live in. We will leave.
So why is it important that America be a country where, regardless of your faith background, parents are able to raise their kids according to those religious beliefs? And then why is it that school choice is such an essential part to that?
Well, if you want to be able to bring up your kids, I mean, I personally have 6 children. I have 3 grandchildren. Get back to me in 15 years, Mr. Farris. You know,
and you were saying that in your community, 6 is actually kind of a low number.
That's, there was a joke that if we ever had a Orthodox airline, it would be, you know, every 10th kid flies free. The ability of parents to choose the path of their children is a fundamental. Like I said, it's baked into the Bible itself. It tells us exactly what has to be. And if that creates, I mean, America was always about being a country that welcomes the downtrodden from other places. It doesn't persecute. It doesn't engage in persecution. Telling parents that we know how to educate your children better than you do takes control of the future, takes control of their future, and takes it away from you. And that is indeed the path to oppression. In fact, there was a certain politician who got herself into a lot of hot water for quoting Hitler, unfortunately, very aptly, because he knew the same thing the Bible said. He said, if you control the youth, you control the future. And she said that to warn us about the dangers of indoctrination. And people said she admires Hitler. I mean, this was crazy. You know, welcome to the world of modern politics. In the reality, she was pointing to a very clear danger when schools and school administrators think they know better than parents, and government thinks it knows better than parents how children should be educated.
That's good. And I like that you mentioned it's not just the public school system, but they're trying to encroach more. And so religious education, homeschooling, private education is more important now than ever, especially given our culture is trying to educate through every other channel, whether that's TikTok, Instagram, Netflix, right? So it's such an important institution to be able to have the freedom to continue to educate as you see fit. Well, thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for your work with the Coalition. Thank you for being a part of this celebration. Your work is much appreciated, Rabbi.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.